The drivers for continuous monitoring are practical and pressing. First, human error is unavoidable when teams manage dozens of systems and repeat checks across changing environments. Automation reduces variance and fatigue. Second, cloud scale means the surface area of controls has exploded, multiple regions, tenants, and services, so assurance must scale with it. Third, near real-time detection shortens the window of exposure. An access anomaly or policy drift identified in minutes is a different risk than one noticed at quarter's end. Finally, CCM directly improves audit readiness. When evidence is generated by the control itself and preserved with timestamps and provenance, the scramble to collect screenshots disappears. In short, CCM supports the same goals you already have: reliable operations, rapid response, and credible evidence, only faster and with greater consistency. A durable CCM architecture stands on 4 pillars: event sources, normalization and correlation, integration with governance systems, and clear visualization. Event sources include logs from identity and access platforms, change and deployment records from ticketing and CI/CD tools, configuration states from cloud providers, and operational metrics from monitoring stacks. A normalization pipeline transforms heterogeneous feeds into a common schema, letting an alert engine apply rules consistently across systems. Integration with your GRC or evidence repository ensures that every alert, confirmation, and closure is captured where auditors and leaders expect to find it. Dashboards then translate the raw stream into decision-ready views, control health by owner, deviations by severity, and trend lines that reveal whether corrective actions are sticking. When each pillar is sound, CCM becomes both intelligible and auditable. Choosing what to automate first requires discipline. Begin with repeatable, high-frequency controls whose failure has clear impact: access provisioning and deprovisioning, privileged activity monitoring, change approvals correlated with deployments, encryption, and logging baselines. Prioritize high-risk areas where human steps frequently break down, such as post-termination account disables or emergency change documentation. Weigh cost and benefit honestly. Some controls are complex to automate but produce little incremental assurance, while others are easy to script and pay dividends immediately. Design a phased roadmap. Pilot in one domain, measure false positives and response times, tune thresholds, then scale. This sequence prevents automation theater by proving value early and building stakeholder confidence through observable, incremental wins. Data ingestion and validation make or break trust in CCM. API connections to identity systems, cloud providers, SIEMs, ticketing tools, and configuration inventories must be authenticated, rate-limited, and monitored for stability. Every feed needs a completeness check. Did we receive data for the expected time window? And an accuracy check. Do the fields match the schema and business meaning? Anomalies like missing batches or duplicate events should raise alerts because a blind CCM is worse than none at all. Maintain metadata for provenance, the source system, collector identity, query parameters, and timestamps. That metadata becomes part of the evidence package, allowing auditors to see not just the result of a control check, but also how the data arrived and why it is reliable. Alerting and thresholds translate monitoring into action. For each control, define what inbounds looks like and where deviations begin. Acceptable ranges might include new privileged role assignments per day, percentage of assets with full disk encryption, or time from change approval to deployment. Notifications should route by severity and ownership. Informational messages to the service team, high-severity deviations to on-call plus compliance leadership. Integrate alerts with remediation queues so that every deviation becomes a tracked ticket with SLA expectations. Then measure your signal quality. Track false positive rates, mean time to detect, and mean time to remediate. Thresholds are not one and done. They evolve with your environment as you tune out noise and capture meaningful risk earlier. Concrete examples clarify how CCM feels in practice. Continuous MFA enforcement monitoring checks identity provider policies and authenticator enrollment status daily, flagging any admin account that drifts from the required posture. Change approvals correlated with deployments means your pipeline links a specific approval record to a specific release artifact. If a deploy occurs without the approval, an alert fires and the pipeline can auto-block or roll back. Privileged Access Review Completion Tracking compares the roster of privileged users against a scheduled review calendar and auto-opens tickets for any overdue attestations, attaching the latest entitlement export for the reviewer. Daily evidence snapshots then capture counts, exceptions, and closures directly to a compliance dashboard, providing auditors a dated trail without extra effort from engineers. Integrating CCM with SOC2 control expectations is straightforward when you speak the same language. Signals about access and entitlements map to CC6. Operational health, logging, and response map to CC7. Incident triggers and escalation align to CC9. For each automated validation, note how an auditor would traditionally test it by sampling. Then attach the logs, exports, or tickets your automation produces. When CCM outputs can be sampled the same way manual controls were, you preserve auditability while improving freshness. Over time, your control matrix can point to automated validations as primary test steps, with manual sampling reserved for exceptions and edge cases. Tooling matters, but interoperability matters more. SIEM platforms remain central for log correlation, while Cloud Security Posture Management (CSPM) scanners verify cloud configuration baselines and drift. GRC systems anchor governance, linking controls, owners, frequencies, and artifacts, and serve as the evidence catalog. Cloud-native compliance services and APIs like AWS Config, Azure Policy, or GCP Organization Policy provide fast, authoritative signals for posture checks. Automation orchestrators, whether workflow engines, serverless functions, or event buses, route deviations into the right queues with the right context. A unified dashboard aggregates these sources so that leaders see control health rather than 10 separate tool views. The litmus test: can you answer a simple question, "Are we in control right now?" without opening more than one screen? Detection alone is half a control. Remediation and closure complete the loop. When a deviation appears, the system should open a ticket automatically, assign it to the named control owner, and attach the evidence that triggered the alert. As work proceeds, status updates and artifacts like the confirming configuration change or the new approval record should attach to the same case. Closure requires verification. Either a second automated check confirms the state is back within threshold, or a human reviewer attests with supporting logs. That closure artifact then flows to the evidence repository, preserving a compact, cradle-to-grave record that auditors can follow without extra explanations. Evidence automation is the quiet superpower of CCM. Because checks run on schedules or in response to events, every successful validation produces a time-stamped, immutable record by design. Screenshots and ad hoc exports give way to API-driven reports with embedded metadata, hashes, and period coverage, eliminating disputes about when and how the evidence was created. Continuous sampling happens naturally. If a control runs weekly through the Type 2 period, you already have a population of 52 events from which auditors can select. When retrieval during audits is as simple as filtering by control and date range, your team stops spending nights chasing files and starts spending time improving controls. Metrics and KRI give CCM its steering wheel. Track the ratio of automated to manual controls to show progress in coverage. Monitor average time to detect and time to remediate to ensure that speed improves as signals sharpen. Measure false positive ratios by control to focus tuning where it matters most. And watch data feed uptime to verify that ingestion remains healthy. Evidence completeness percentage, how many expected runs produced artifacts, exposes silent failures. These metrics are not vanity numbers. They are operating dials that tell you whether your automated assurance engine is humming or coughing. Quality assurance keeps automation honest. Scripts and rules should undergo periodic validation. Does the query still capture the right population after a schema change? Simulated failures, disabling MFA on a non-production admin, pushing a test deployment without the required approval, confirm that alerts fire and workflows route correctly. Peer reviews catch brittle logic, hard-coded assumptions, and ambiguous thresholds. After any control or system change, regression testing verifies that your monitoring still works. Think of QA as safety rails for speed. The faster you automate, the more you must prove that the automation remains accurate and trustworthy. Governance and oversight transform a collection of scripts into a program. Name a CCM owner and establish a steering group that includes operations, security, compliance, and product. Include CCM status in governance meetings so deviations, backlogs, and tuning decisions are visible to leadership. Define an exceptions policy for automation failures, what happens when a feed breaks or a script misfires, and record configuration updates with rationale and approvals. This audit trail of the CCM itself is evidence. It shows that you manage your monitoring with the same care you demand of your production systems. Security and privacy considerations must be designed in, not bolted on. Monitoring data can include sensitive identifiers, operational details, or even personal information if you aggregate user actions. Protect these streams in transit and at rest, restrict dashboard access to least privilege roles, and minimize data fields to what the control actually requires. Where personal data is unnecessary for assurance, anonymize or pseudonymize it in evidence outputs. Validate that CCM feeds and dashboards comply with your privacy notices and commitments. Assurance cannot come at the cost of obligations to individuals. Integrating CCM with risk management turns signals into strategy. Each deviation should link to a risk record or category, updating residual scores after remediation. Trend lines across quarters reveal persistent failures, say repeated drift on S3 encryption, which then justify design changes or product work. Escalate chronic issues to leadership with quantified impact, increased exception counts, slower remediation, or widening variance. In this way, CCM output stops being noise and becomes the most current input to enterprise risk decisions, closing the loop between control operation and strategic prioritization. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Training and enablement are what transform continuous control monitoring from a technology project into a cultural discipline. Every control owner must understand not only how automation functions, but how to interpret its signals. A red alert is not a crisis if it's a false positive, and a green dashboard is not comfort if the data feed is broken. Education should cover how alerts are generated, where evidence resides, and the escalation pathways when deviations occur. Troubleshooting guides and FAQs help teams resolve common issues quickly, reducing alert fatigue. Reinforcing response SLAs and ownership expectations ensures that automated detection leads to meaningful action. When employees see continuous monitoring as a shared responsibility rather than an external policing mechanism, the organization moves closer to a culture of continuous assurance, where real-time visibility becomes second nature. CCM maturity progresses through clearly observable stages. At level 1, the organization relies entirely on manual evidence collection, spreadsheet trackers, screenshots, and quarterly checklists. Level 2 introduces scheduled automation jobs, often through cron tasks or scripts that pull logs at defined intervals. Level 3 represents true real-time, event-driven monitoring, where deviations trigger automated alerts and workflows instantly. Level 4 adds intelligence. Predictive analytics and AI models identify anomalies before thresholds are breached, allowing proactive correction. This evolution reflects the broader shift in cybersecurity from reactive control management to continuous risk anticipation. Reaching higher maturity isn't about adding tools, it's about embedding assurance directly into the system's operational heartbeat. Common pitfalls in CCM are rarely technical. They're governance oversights that erode credibility. One of the most frequent is using unvalidated data sources that generate noise rather than insight. If a log feed duplicates entries or misses intervals, your continuous view becomes misleading. Another common flaw is unclear script ownership. Automations orphaned after staff turnover lead to silent failures. A third is the absence of documentation for logic and thresholds, leaving auditors unable to understand how alerts are derived. The fixes are simple but non-negotiable. Conduct periodic data quality checks, assign script owners with documented succession, and maintain metadata describing logic, parameters, and validation history. Peer reviews and configuration baselines ensure automation remains transparent, traceable, and defensible. CCM creates opportunities for cross-framework synergy, allowing one investment to satisfy many obligations. The same continuous signals that feed SOC 2 can map to ISO 2701 Annex A controls, NIST SP 853 families, or CIS safeguards. Instead of running separate audits and data pulls, organizations can centralize reporting through unified dashboards that tag alerts and evidence with relevant framework identifiers. Automated checks for encryption, access, or configuration drift are universally valuable regardless of regulatory label. By reusing these continuous checks across frameworks, you cut redundant testing and demonstrate that governance is both scalable and standardized. This integrated reporting strengthens credibility with auditors and customers alike, showing that your assurance program is cohesive rather than fragmented. Auditors benefit profoundly from CCM, and so does the organization. Automated evidence exports allow auditors to verify controls without requesting manual screenshots or replaying events months later. With continuous sampling across the operating period, they can review any week or month as a valid test window. Transparency into deviation histories, complete with timestamps, tickets, and closure logs, builds trust that exceptions are managed, not hidden. Fewer manual tests and less back and forth reduce fieldwork time, enabling auditors to focus on analysis instead of collection. The organization, in turn, gains an audit process that is collaborative, efficient, and almost frictionless, replacing episodic anxiety with sustained readiness. Reporting cadence keeps CCM aligned with governance rhythms. Weekly dashboards serve operational teams, showing active deviations, resolution rates, and system health. Monthly summaries roll up to compliance leadership, focusing on metrics like automation coverage, alert volumes, and SLA adherence. Quarterly governance reports aggregate these insights for executives and risk committees, correlating control performance with organizational objectives. Annually, trend analyses reveal how automation improved detection time, reduced exceptions, or expanded coverage. These time-layered reports transform continuous data into strategic insight, proof that monitoring isn't just keeping the lights on, but driving measurable improvement in risk posture and audit efficiency. Sustainability and scaling are the ultimate test of a mature CCM program. As environments evolve, new services and regions must be onboarded into automation seamlessly. Modularizing scripts and templates allows reuse across teams, while standardized APIs simplify integration for new tools. Embedding monitoring hooks directly into DevSecOps pipelines ensures every code deployment inherits compliance checks automatically, eliminating the need for post-release remediation. Governance documentation must evolve alongside, recording which controls are automated, how evidence is stored, and who maintains each component. Sustained success depends on treating CCM as infrastructure, not a project, something maintained, versioned, and improved just like the systems it protects. In conclusion, continuous control monitoring and automation represent the natural progression of modern SOC 2 maturity. Instead of relying on snapshots captured during audit windows, organizations build a living control environment that measures itself continuously. Automation ensures evidence is born trustworthy, time-stamped, immutable, and ready for audit, while dashboards and workflows ensure deviations are corrected swiftly and transparently. Governance, training, and privacy guardrails keep this automation responsible and aligned with the organization's commitments. The result is faster detection, cleaner evidence, and stronger assurance for auditors, regulators, and customers alike. As the compliance ecosystem moves toward real-time verification, CCM stands as the bridge between operational excellence and continuous trust, setting the stage for the next evolution: automated ticketing and workflow systems as formal evidence sources in SOC 2 programs.